So we have 3 hours left of our talkathon of the Baton of Hope, Sunlight Development Trust and Mental Health Matters. As you can see, we're setting up for our craft there within the Sunlight Centre, which goes on today between 12 and 3 o'clock. The cafe is going to be open, so if you want to come down and get involved with us or the craft there or see what Sunlight's about, please just come down. There's lots of staff here to come and help you talk. And I have Dallas with me today. He's just turned up to support our talkathon.
Fantastic, and it's a great occasion indeed to be part of the community. Baton of Hope, Sunlight Centre, creating great value and also raising awareness to some very key and salient topics such as mental health and what do we do to support individuals going through such crisis in a way that we don't stigmatise them. So apparently there's a bicycle there, what a black version, that's supposed to be talking on, right?
Yeah, so exercise and mental health go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
We had lots of speakers yesterday about the benefits of exercise and mental health together. So, Dallas, I want you to come and pedal on the bike and let me know how you're feeling afterwards. Maybe it'll wake you up because it's still early in the morning for us.
Oh, most definitely. I feel good.
Good.
I feel good. There is a lot of value, as you rightly said, in terms of exercise and mental health. It's an intervention that unfortunately doesn't get enough recognition. As you know, when you exercise, you know, the chemicals that are released, we call it like deferred gratification. So your endorphins fire up after you've done good exercise, and serotonin can also be activated. So these help regulate your mental health, give you that sense of belonging, get the warm fuzzies, you know, you get a bit of adrenaline, and these things are such positive chemicals that you don't always need to go down the medication route. There's some cheap and cheerful interventions that you can do yourself to keep your body, your mental health regulated.
Yes, definitely. I think the great thing about exercise with mental health is when you become anxious, your body creates a lot more energy because it feels like it needs to run away. So it's creating all of that extra energy to ensure you have the stamina and the power to run away. So the best thing for people to do when they're anxious is to go and do something physically active because it burns off all of that extra energy, and then your body sort of understands that you've used all of this energy now, and although you might not be in a panic anymore, you're calmer because all of this nervous energy that's been bouncing around you isn't there anymore.
Sure. And and again, dopamine is another chemical that's released when you do exercise. And it goes back to our ancient times when we were hunters and gatherers, you know, that chemical that's released when you seek out something and you find it, you get that sense of reward and accomplishment. So, you're quite right, you know, depression, anxiety, all of these states, you know, when you do exercise, you know, the body obviously is releasing these chemicals. You might not feel so great whilst you're doing it, but again, like I said before, it's deferred gratification. The chemicals will kick in, you start feeling good, you've accomplished something because you've got physical results. The breathing becomes more regulated. It's similar like, you know, in cultures where we have a cup of tea when we're stressed. There's a lot to be said about some of these basic activities because you cannot drink tea when it's piping hot. And there's a process of making a cup of tea as well. There's a ritual. I think everybody here has a different take or different technique for making the perfect cup of tea. And all of that helps regulate you, calm you down, make you focus on something else whilst you're in the background processing whatever it is that's causing you stress, anxiety, all sorts of things.
Definitely. I don't think we should start arguing over the best way to make a cup of tea. Definitely the tea bag, the sugar, the hot water, and then the milk.
I get you. Me, I don't drink tea, I drink coffee, black, keep it simple.
Nice and easy. That's what we like.
Cheap brown. I'm a cheap brown, so that's fantastic. I've been, as a counsellor for Gillingham North, along with Adam and Leah, we spend a lot of the time at the Sunlight Centre. You know, again, when you're talking and exercising, not easy, it's very hard. But again, you possibly burn more calories. So we spend a lot of time at the Sunlight Centre, great initiatives, minute sheds particularly. There's a lot to be said about, how you doing, Chris? there's a lot to be said about mental health and destigmatizing it, allowing people to connect and engage. We know from COVID that a lot of people have lost that connection, and loneliness is such a big issue for people. Being able to come to a centre like this in the heart of Gillingham, so many different organisations that are here taking place today, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think the brilliant thing about Sunlight is, so Sunlight is turning 20 in January, and you know, we're looking into when Sunlight first developed to what it is now, because Sunlight came about as a community need at the time, and Sunlight has developed so much because the community has changed so rapidly, like you said, with COVID, with poverty, you know, and so all of these other services have come into play, and Sunlight has slotted all of this into one roof, and I'm sure in 20 years' time, Sunlight will still look like the heart of the community, but that community might look very different in 20 years' time as how it did 20 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely, and as a clinician myself, a mental health clinician, I can say this to you with all openness and frankness. The interventions that are on offer here at the Sunlight, born out of lived experience, trumps the medical model 10 times fold. There's something unique about individuals who give back to the community based upon their own experiences. Because in mental health particularly, I'm going to have to stop. I'm not supposed to be continuous. I'm sure you put this on level 10.
How are you feeling now you've exercised?
Honestly, I'm tired, right? My legs are trembling, but I know the conversation's fluid, so I've got to keep it going. But I want to just go and sit down and continue where we are. Okay, cool.
You'll have to talk loud at it because of the cars.
Okay.
That's fine. So on Monday the 22nd of September, me and Alice and one of the Men in Sheds volunteers are going to be walking the baton of hope, not only on behalf of all of Sunlight, but on behalf of our own journeys within mental health. It's going to be a very powerful day for everyone involved, and it's amazing that we were picked to be part of that as a, you know, we're sort of like the token for Sunlight to hold that hope. And I think that's a really big thing. Sunlight is a lot of hope for a lot of people, and I think that's why it's so important that Sunlight makes such a stand to raise awareness of the baton of hope, because the ethos of Sunlight and the ethos of the baton of hope are nigh on identical.
Yes.
So.
No, it's truly fantastic. I myself going to be taking part in the Baton of Hope. I'm not too sure where my slot is, but I'm going to be there. Proud of it. We need to do a lot more work in raising awareness on suicide prevention. One of the biggest issues I think around suicide prevention is debunking this whole notion of commit suicide.
Yes.
You know, that whole stigma that people have who have attempted to take their own life is diminished by this sense of guilt that they've broken the law. Because when you commit an offence, it's a crime. So I do a lot of work, again, in trying to challenge that whole notion. And a lot more work needs to be done, and difficult conversations need to be had.
And I think one of the main things around changing that narrative of ending your own life is, you know, back in like my dad's generation, it was very, I think this is the thing, mental health has come so far in 20 years that, you know, 20 years ago, there were still people being sectioned and sent to asylums. There were still people being treated with electric shock therapy and stuff like that. And with the younger generation, that narrative is changing so quickly. And, you know, we see it within the mental health team as well. The mental health team is very, very big on, you know, community care. Let's keep these people in the community. Let's help them in the community, because we have such a fantastic community around us in Medway that we're able to do that.
Yeah, and also it's as anything new becomes, not new in mental health, but in terms of it becoming more mainstream, you have those people who are still challenging this whole concept of mental health, as if people are wanting to wing it, it's wishy-washy, it's vague, but it's not. We're human beings, so we are thinking beings. As we have physical issues, we have mental issues. And until we create services that run in parallel and complement each other like that, we're going to do each other a great disservice. People are supposed to be able to talk about their thoughts, wishes, and feelings. And you said that sunlight is a beacon, a bastion of hope. Yeah. There are three things that we know are, for example, a fire. To stop a fire, what three things do you have to get rid of? One of three things you have to get rid of.
Oxygen, air.
Water,
air.
heat,
Fuel.
and fuel.
Yeah.
Right. For mental health, you also have the three things. Like, one of these three things is missing, people lose out, and that's hope, opportunity, and control. You know, if you remove control from people's lives, you know, they feel low about themselves. If you remove the hope from people's life, and an opportunity to express themselves, and sunlight is a good example of that, where people don't feel stigmatized. You can turn up in your best self.
Yes. Yeah, and I think this is what's so great about sunlight, because with sunlight you use this place how you need it. Yeah, if you have a really stressful life at home and you want to forget about that life and you want to come and volunteer a couple of hours and be you as you instead of you as the carer or you as the caregiver or the parent, you can do that. Yeah, if you want to come in here because you mask so highly in your normal life that people don't know anything's going on, you can come in here and you can tell us what's going on. And with that sort of separate part of your life, with that sort of break and respite for those couple of hours.
And it's refreshing, and those couple of hours should be your permanent hours.
Yes.
If you really look at it, people are tribal, right? As you can see, as what's happening around the country now, people are tribal, want to be in certain groups. Up until they need care. Up until you need care, then in that moment you want to be treated as an individual. You know, before that you're part of this group, but being able to display your individual characteristics, that inner voice, being able to express itself, you realize that individualized care and allowing people to be who they are designed to be is the most beneficial thing you could do. We wear masks. Some people wear masks way too often.
Yes.
You know, so it's important. We're coming to see the colours. It's a good thing.
Yeah, and I think, you know, also the stigma around mental health is, I think that's what needs to be broken. Everyone has mental health. Everyone goes through spats in their life of having poor mental health, and everyone goes through spats in their life of having good mental health. So, you know, when you're having good mental health, why are we looking down on the people that are experiencing their poor mental health? When, you know, give it a couple of months, a couple of years, it wouldn't take very long, especially in this economy of poverty. You know, people are living paycheck to paycheck as it is. So all it takes is you to not have one paycheck, and then you're in that category of being in poor mental health.
Exactly. People fear what they don't understand.
Yes.
And instead of asking why, how, they're quick to label.
Yes.
You know, I spent a lot of my years growing up fighting labels. You know, I came to the UK as a refugee, so I already had a label. I didn't look like I was from Africa, so I had a lot of West Indian friends.
Yes.
But I was African, I was from Zimbabwe. So all these labels, they follow you. You're supposed to behave, you're supposed to like a certain music, you're supposed to do this, all of these things. And there was a little voice in me that says, that's not me. You know, I can say it now, but growing up, being a geek was the worst thing you could be called. But now I geek out all the time. It's the coolest thing to be. And I think we need to enable people to look beyond the labels that they've been given, allow people to fully express themselves. That variety stops us becoming a North Korea, where everything's just grey, magnolia. We need that vibrancy to allow us to really be at our best as a nation. And
I think that's sort of like, that's like the herd mentality, isn't it? It's that person is doing that, people like them, so we're all going to do that. You know, it's in everything. It's in clothing brands, it's in influencers, it's in, you name it. There's going to be someone out there on the internet or in person telling you why what they're doing is better than what everyone else is doing, and they're trying to convince you to sort of join their tribe instead of you deciding for yourself. You know, you might like a bit of that that tribe, you might like a bit of that one, and then you take parts from each thing to develop who you want to be.
Yeah. My mum always said to me, be part of the herd. Like, if you imagine a herd of elephants, right?
Yeah.
Be in that herd of elephants, but be the wandering elephant at the back that goes off
Yes.
on your own journey and then comes back.
Yes.
You know, it's important that you feel connected to people, but also go on your journey of self-discovery and bring those teachings back, or whatever you experience back. That's why we get culture like ripped jeans, colourful trainers. That's how I get manga. That's why I get all these things that we take for granted. Because somebody decided, actually, why can't I have curry in my chips? Why can I not have colour my hair red or whatever?
Yeah.
And you might get ridiculed at first, but then things become mainstream because of that. Those brave individuals that decided to leave the herd a little bit,
Yeah, definitely.
then come back.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I'm with you 1000%. Mental health, particularly men's mental health.
Yes.
We're now a technologically enabled generation where you don't need testosterone in the way you needed testosterone 100 years ago.
Yeah. We're
Automatically.
not
We're not hunter-gatherers. So for many in particular, and I'm going to be a bit biased, there's something to be said about what then happens to young men, boys, when they get the testosterone but don't know how to channel it.
Yeah.
So we see a rise in self-harm, we see a rise in misogynistic type behavior, you know, mistreating people, and also just in terms of general confusion, what do they do? We need to demonstrate that you can still add a lot of value being who you are, irrespective of your testosterone, estrogen levels. They're not relevant. It's how do you treat each other?
Yeah.
You know, how do you find value in your day? What do you do in your life? So these are the questions I ask the young people I care for all the time. I challenge them on that one, because if you ask somebody typically, what's your goal? What's your aspiration? 9 out of 10 times, whatever the first answer is not what they really want. You know, it's shrouded by expectations from the tribe.
Yes.
You know, a female might say, I'm going to be stereotypically housewife, get married, or you know. But if you stick to that person long enough, you find out who they really are, what passions they are. I'm there for them throughout that journey, and when they click on and say, actually, I want to be this, I'm there for that journey with them.
And you know, especially in women, I think there's no reason why a woman, you know, can't be a mother and a homemaker and have an amazing career. The same as, like, you know, you have single dads that look after children, they can take care of the home, and they have a career.
Yeah.
So you know, those sort of gender roles that came about like in the primitive times, they're not really too much there anymore, or at least that's what we're sort of fighting for. It's, you know, whatever men can do, women can do, and whatever women can do, men can do.
No, absolutely, and it's playing out in real time.
Yes.
This is what's happening. Young people come to Earth with a tremendous amount of ability, and they're more techie savvy. I've got nephews and nieces, 3, 4 that are doing all this kind of stuff, right? But equally, they can't fly a kite. They can't do things I did when I was a kid. They've got different sets of skills, so they're playing out in real time, or living through in real time some of the deepest philosophical conversations that has been discussed, but they weren't enabled to enact. So I support them on that journey, and more empowerment to them. In terms of the Battle of Hope, I also done some work with Legends on the Bench as well. The whole thing about making sure people don't feel even worse than they feel already inside. Because the level of depression you have to be at to want to even contemplate doing taking your own life is one you can't write down.
No.
And every single person has a different journey, you know. So we need to really take some time out to listen to those stories, be there, and don't be so judgmental. We don't know what intervention will work. So what I tend to do is talk lots and try and find a key point, a key issue, or a key point that allows me to connect to that person on a more deeper level. Some people don't have that. Some people don't have that. They want to label all people in one group. you know, and it's not good. Not
No,
good.
it's not good. And I think the other thing is with depression looks different for different people. Yeah, so you know, you could have been through something really traumatic and that led you into a deep depression. But equally, just because you had a traumatic event happen doesn't mean that the next person that you deem not to have such a traumatic event means they're not in as deep a depression as you. Because it's how that person experiences that. It's not down to whose trauma is bigger than the next person's, it's how it's made you feel.
And this is why the first date syndrome is such a bad thing, and also because it lacks context.
Yes.
If I was to see, when I turned 50, Leah's here, do you want to come join us? When I turned 50, I had to see my GP, right? Because as men at 50, you have to go for these tests, right? So as the date and time for this test was coming, I was starting to feel more and more anxious. I was fine in the morning, but then when I got to the GP surgery, I had to wait 20 minutes. I saw my GP. My GP done my blood pressure and everything. He said, "Oh, you got high blood pressure. Do you got history of high blood pressure in your family?" But it has no context. The context is I'm anxious because I'm now 50. I'm scared of what you're going to do to me. Blah blah blah. You know, and this is what happens to a lot of people who turn up to mental health services. You don't get the context. You just see them in that moment, and then you make a decision.
Yeah, and I think especially within the Haven, that's what we see. We see people coming through the doors in those absolute states of crisis, don't you? And that's what's hard.
So you
without...
wanted to introduce Leah to the conversation.
Hey guys.
You've got a very little teacup there.
I thought it was going to be the best one.
Yeah, we were talking about mental health and how it manifests, what can we do to raise awareness, the badge of hope, all sorts of things. And I was talking about the context, like how you could present as somebody that's completely unwell, but without the context that could be completely false.
But when you were saying it, I was thinking, you guys will be aware that got quite severe mental health, he doesn't leave the house and things. But when you meet him in person, he doesn't present as that person. So there's a lot of kind of people think he's faking it, or kind of just going along. But like you see it from the inside of that, it looks exceptionally different. And I think it's actually quite hard to get that across to mental health professionals, because even then he still presents as...
He presents too well.
Yeah.
And that's the brutal truth. When you present too well, you don't get extra services. And then when you do present, if you elevate how you present, you go to the wrong service that's too traumatic for you. Somehow we need to get the right professionals that understand nuance and understand context.
Definitely.
I get that a lot as well. So you could have been laying in bed in an absolute slog, like depression hit for over a week, not showered, not got changed. And then you get this mental health appointment and you're like, right, I'm gonna have a shower, I'm gonna put some clothes on, make myself feel nice. And then you turn up and on the paperwork you receive, you've got written down presentable, wearing appropriate clothes,
clean,
clean, seem to have showered, keeping up with hygiene. I'm like, this is the first shower I've had in a week.
Definitely.
And I'm like, but I don't want to go out being all smelly and in gross clothes and stuff. But because then I've made that effort, they think that I'm fine.
But I think they don't see how hard that effort was for you, if that makes sense. They just see you walking in that room, you're showered, you're clean, you're wearing clean clothes, you mind your manners. They don't see you 20 minutes before that having a full-blown meltdown because you've got to get out of bed, you've now got to get dressed, you haven't eaten in days, there's no food, and all of these other things that come with it for you to build up to even get to that appointment.
And on to Leah's point, go on,
I was going to say, I think the bar is sometimes different for mental health professionals. I don't know. Like, I've read those reports sometimes, and I've been in the appointments with Luke, and I read the reports that come through, and they say things like presentable, articulate, whereas I've sat there and been like, Jesus, Luke, you're right, you're like on the edge. And I don't know how we've had a different perception of that meeting.
They don't seem to notice certain aspects.
Or they don't have time in the assessment. The environment is not conducive for you. I was doing some work with a guy who was ex-MI5. So he was a spy, effectively. He was a spy. And in fact, he teaches courses to the NHS around assessment. And how much do we miss in body language? 80% of communication is non-verbal.
Yes.
But if you're not trained to understand nuances and how people might shift their gait from the one leg to the other, you don't ask the probing question.
Yes.
You know, so it's also important that we have representation from people from all communities in mental health. We spoke about peer support workers. We need a lot more peer support workers.
Yes.
A lot. It's the biggest tragedy that we have probably across maybe 3 or 4, so just one peer support worker running across like a headless chicken. They need to have more peer support worker, more tailor-made solutions, and less of a fixation on just surveys.
Yes.
You know, just surveys. How do you feel today? You know, and they ask the survey at the wrong time as well.
Yeah, and I think this is the thing, especially being within that community setting. I think if every single time someone walked through the door, I did the, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you feeling today?
And a lot of those people don't even know how to explain what their emotions are or understand them and put it into any kind of form of words.
And I think a lot of them would shout abuse at me as well.
Yeah.
Because they've heard it 10 times that day, and all they want is to walk through that door and go, "Hi, did you want a cup of coffee?" And just be treated like an actual person instead of a time slot.
Yeah. And this thing about evidencing the work you do I think we need a seminar or conference about, from an individual's perspective, how then can we evidence, how can the NHS evidence the journey?
Yes.
Either through storytelling or whatever, how can they evidence it? Because for some reason, the funds are becoming cut. There's a shortage of funding and they say you cannot evidence the work you do.
Yes.
And like in physical health, you break a leg, they know you get a cast for X amount period of time, and it's straightforward.
You know what your treatment
Mental health isn't it's nothing like that.
No.
Your journey, the fact you're still here, you've saved the NHS. How much? You can't even quantify. You can't even quantify, but you have. It's adding tremendous value. How many people are still here now because of you and yourself?
Yeah.
You know, so being able to have those stories means something. So maybe need a service that's not so fixated on making a profit.
Yes.
It just exists to be there based upon your population.
Yeah.
You know, maybe that's the solution. I don't know.
I also think when we say we need more peer support workers, I think within services we also need to realise that comes with reasonable adjustments.
Yeah.
Because I think if we want more peer support workers, to realise that people's mental health can be delicate and might relapse, and I'm not sure that, I think I could hear, but I'm not sure that in general or across services that making those allowances and allowing people that time, and the fact that they might need time off and it might not come at a convenient time for the organisation. I just don't know that it's always, we want peer support workers, but I don't know that we always make the allowances.
I think it's a great point. And I'll give you an example to support that. You look at women in politics. We had, I have to say a name for this example, I have to say a name. We had Margaret Thatcher, who was a Prime Minister, right?
Yeah.
Female, leader of the country, right? How many provisions did she put in place for women? In terms of like things that women would need. Very few, if any. You know, so like peer support workers, if you only got one peer support worker, what tends to happen is they adapt to the environment that they're in, instead of being able to have adaptations to support them so they can maximize their ability in that environment.
Definitely.
So yeah, absolutely, the more you have, the more actually we need to have this. And there's no reason why you can't have a peer support worker leading, managing a team. No reason at all.
And I think, you know, everyone deserves reasonable adjustment, don't they? So, you know, I think this is where it differs. Yes, we do need peer support workers, absolutely, but I think peer support workers don't just need to be this level. Peer support workers can go all the way through. Yeah, so I'm the manager for the crisis service, but you know, I have 2 diagnoses, I'm on medication, I have reasonable adjustments to help me carry out my own job. And it's the same with most people in my staff team. You know, if you if there is a really high pressure situation and we need to save someone's life, about how like that lived experience trumps most clinical interventions.
Yeah, I would say the lived experience is one that needs a lot more validation, a lot more held in high esteem, the lived experience. Because typically when somebody's going through mental crisis, you need the combination of the two. You need people who are strong in the medical model in terms of understanding on a physiological level what's happening, various treatments, but the lived experience has to run in parallel. The best example I could put it to is if you're flying a plane. You know, you need two wings to fly. If you bank too far on one side, you crash. Bank to the side. So if you've got a treatment model that's heavily focused on the treatment without lived experience, you will not help the individual. You know, so it's that fine balance between lived experience and the clinicians that obviously understand it from the medical model as well, coming together with a shared purpose. And that's when we get the value.
And I think this is what's so amazing at Sunlight. So Sunlight has its own GP surgery, and because the entire building is centred towards mental health and wellbeing, a lot of our mental health and wellbeing patients are registered for the GP here. At the Haven, we have really strong connections with the mental health team that work at the surgery. We have weekly meetings with them for them to give us that clinical input and us to give them what we think out in the community they need and what we can offer them. So we sort of work hand in hand together to make sure that our clients get the best possible care from both of us working simultaneously instead of going to a GP and then coming to us separately. Does that make sense?
You know, absolutely. You're making the things simple, and for any intervention to stick, it has to be simple. Meeting people where they are and wrapping services around them is absolutely the way to go. When you signpost people to a service that might not be available at that time, at a different location, just makes things a lot more complicated for the individual. So the Sunlight model is something that needs to be lifted and shifted across other centres, other communities, learning from this best practice and being able to evidence that this is actually the best way to go forward.
And I think what's amazing is obviously we opened Haven last year in June, and that model was very new to Sunlight. And the great thing about the Haven is we are that crisis intervention and that preventative care coming out of crisis. But then once they're out of that crisis, we can signpost them to services within the same building. And you know, a lot of that anxiety comes from going somewhere new, meeting new people that you've never been to before and stuff like that. So not only have they come through our doors in an absolute state of crisis, and we've helped de-escalate that over, you know, 1 day, 2 days, a couple of weeks, but we can signpost them into services like Men in Sheds, our wellbeing cafe and things like that, and they already know the building, they probably already know the staff. The Haven staff are going to be knocking around doing paperwork, so it's going to be a lot more it's going to be easier for them to come back and get that next, like that lower step down of preventative care.
That's superb, and this has to be said and reinforced. This is before the new 10-year plan for the NHS. This model of neighbourhoods, being able to activate individuals by wrapping around services where they're at, is that it's ahead of its game. And we've been doing it for over a year now here, and again, it's about evidencing those journeys of individual stories that people want to share. You know, anxiety. I do a lot of work with people going through deep depression, deep anxiety, and as you rightly said, being connected to people, don't have to travel too far, making things easier. It's not because people are lazy. It just helps reinforce better habits.
Yes, and it's taking down those barriers. You know, if you've got such overwhelming anxiety, the barrier of going to a new place, meeting new people, that can be enough for people not to want to turn up anywhere.
Sure. And also it gives rise to this thing that we have in mental health, which is, and it's been used for a long time, first date syndrome. Have you heard of it? First date syndrome?
No, tell us.
where an individual going through any NHS services, it feels like they're on the first day over and over again. They have to keep on repeating who they are and what they've gone through. So if you can imagine somebody's gone through a very traumatic challenging experience, you don't want that first date syndrome to be always there. You want to know that it's one-stop shop. You said what you said to your service, the services connect to other services, so you don't have to keep on repeating yourself. Because some of these stories are very horrific, and there's not a lot of services that can mop up the after effects of when somebody has revealed to them like some deep-founded feelings. Who's going to debrief them after? You know, so I think this is so important that we have this in the heart of the community as well. And as you rightly said, the demographic changes. There's a fluidity to people coming in, both in terms of different backgrounds and different ages, and come from different experiences. That's a good thing.
And I think that's one of the things I've seen. Like I've worked for Sunlight now for nearly 4 years, and what I've seen is, yes, we have our core Sunlight team that have been here since Project Sunlight down in the dockyard, but we're bringing in new faces, we're bringing in younger people. So that demographic, you know, we've got younger people walking through the doors because they're walking in to people their age and things like that. You know, if elder people want to come in, we've got people of that age range. If a female wants to talk to a female, we've got females. And stuff like that.
And also you've got MACA here as well, the Medway African Caribbean Association, and I know they offer tremendous value to people from those communities that feel they don't have enough access to share their experiences, share their stories, or just slap some dominoes down and just be themselves. I think there's something for every aspect of the community. And the great thing I've seen is that there's cross-fertilization between different groups that might not traditionally mingle. You know, so you have the older people, the younger people, you have that mixture, and the GP surgery is right there. So I spent a lot of time as well working with GPs, and one thing that they value is being able to see, even if they peek the window outside, what is the community up to? You know, so you basically giving them a far more robust feedback loop. You know, which is important.
Yeah, definitely. I think going back to you saying about, you know, having like older people and younger people put together, it's a mix you might not get unless it's in that sort of family setting, is Men in Sheds. So Men in Sheds has had like an influx of younger people. So our long-standing shed volunteers are now teaching these younger men their skills, their electronics, their woodworks, and then they're passing those skills on to the next generation. And you know, that builds young men's confidence. And then, you know, with those skills, they might be able to go out and get an apprenticeship, get an employment, or feel confident enough to go to college to learn more of those skills.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're matching people who have the time.
Yes.
And then people that have the longing for more knowledge and more skills. You smash that together and you create value across the board. So no, it is vital. I know quite a few young men who've gone through Men in Sheds and found it tremendously empowering for them. Particularly now when everything is all up in the air. You're at the cutting edge of what is actually happening. Sometimes governments, local authorities have to wait for research to be done to find out what is prevalent in your community. You know, whether it's the prevalence of young men starting to self-harm, whether it's the prevalence of understanding various identities that young people are grappling with, or whether it's loneliness. You know, sometimes an organisation such as the Sunlight is at the cutting edge. It knows before the data is there to back it up that this is the issue in our particular area. Let's put in place a service. So it's a bunch of go-getters.
Yes.
You know, and that's what I like. People who are active in the communities who understand what they need.
Yeah, and I think that's what's brilliant. We have so many passionate people at Sunlight that see the differences that are being sort of left behind because the community is growing so quickly. So we have like 2 members of staff trained in co-occurring conditions, so mental health and people that are neurodiverse, and how that mixture comes together. And then, you know, we saw the public need that, yes, we've got a men in sheds, and our men in sheds is thriving and it's been going for years, but at the beginning of this year we opened the women in sheds, and some of the men are going into the women in sheds and teaching these women woodworking skills and stuff like that as well. So it's sort of, it's nice, it's all sort of coming together, and you know, all of the men's services now have women's services next to it, and anyone can turn up, if that makes sense. So if you identify as transgender or non-binary, you're still just as welcomed with how you identify yourself.
Sure. And there's a module that needs to be explored further, and that's the sustainability of some of these organisations that are embedded in the sunlight. Many sheds have been going on for quite a few years, but we know from experience that quite a few organisations have come and have gone, not directly from the sunlight, but how then do you remain sustainable? And the fact that many sheds are able to adapt with the times, you know, open up the services to different demographics, or wider demographic. Those are the types of things that we need to really foster, that the ability to be adaptable, flexible, not too rigid, but in a way that everybody can find value in the services that you have to offer.
And I think that's the main thing. As much as, you know, the managers for Sunlight, we sit down, we look at like the quantitative data of everything, we do that, but at the heart of it, I think bigger organisations see those numbers and see the numbers. I look at those numbers and I can name every single person whose number that is, and where they live, and what their issues are, and how we're helping them. And I think that's what's so brilliant about Sunlight, is the staff here know everyone, and if I don't know who you are, there's a member of my staff team that does, that knows your story, that you're able to talk to 7 days a week.
Brilliant. So your number counts, and this is something that happens to bug me. It's one of my bugbears, when, you know, when you try to demonstrate to a patient that your data is needed so it can be counted. You know, particularly if they're paranoid or worried about their data. You know, it's so that we can tell stories with that data. So my hope is always the people that receive that quantitative data understand that NHS number, that unique identifier, there's a story there.
That's an entire life.
That's the entire life, you know. And so I was pushing for those decision makers who make key decisions about how to spend the money, because the money is finite, that they can make the right decisions based upon not just the numbers, but as you rightly said, the story behind the number. Who are these individuals? So a lot of organisations, charities, I really encourage them to try and become a bit more sophisticated the work they're doing, and be able to evidence the work. Because when you're going for funding, this is so crucial.
Yeah, and I think that's something we learned very quickly when we turned into the Safe Haven, is we now capture so much data compared to what we used to capture. We capture data from every single person that walks in the building, rings us, video calls us, sends us a text message, just to show that data we have. So as just the Haven, which is open 6 to 11, we average out at 350 people a month.
Wow.
Just between 9 members of staff.
Wow. That's a Herculean effort, you know, and something about you and your team and the great staff around here, you know, taking care of your mental health, taking care of your mental well-being, you know. It's all well and good you get me on the treadmill, but sometimes we are our worst patients.
Yes, definitely. It's a lot easier to listen to someone else's issues than it is to deal with yourself. And I think we're really lucky. So our staff team is really close knit. We've worked together for about 2 years now. We go on staff activity days together. We have a group chat. You know, if I see something in the shop that reminds me of Claire, I'm buying it for Claire. You know, birthdays, we all get together and we make birthdays for everyone. And I really hope that we try so hard to make all of our staff valued and understood.
Brilliant. Excellent stuff.
Lunchtime, we're round the clock talking non-stop apart from now. Although I see your mouth is still moving. They're about to bring up still. Are you going to be able to sleep without sleep talking? Yes. So they've been raising awareness for the Battle of Hope. So Sunlight,
with Megan as our representative, has been selected to be the Baton of Hope bearer for Gillingham this year. Megan's going to be walking the Baton of Hope with Alice to represent Gillingham Safe Haven, and is it Neil from Medway? Yes. Yeah. So the Baton of Hope is to raise awareness of suicide and hopefully prevent suicides in the future as we help people with their mental health. And part of it is those who've been affected by suicide, might be those who had suicidal thoughts, suicidal attempts, but it's also for those who've been bereaved by suicide and their family who've been affected by losing someone. And I speak from personal experience in that, having lost a family member when I was at school. So it's very important to watch those early signs that Meg and her colleagues have been speaking to you about for the last 26 hours. It's watching those signs of somebody who's very quiet and picking up that feeling that Meg has said she's often identified. And so we really need to thank our mental health first aiders. There's quite a lot at Safe Haven and Sunlight Development Trust, who aren't afraid to ask the questions about suicide and help people get through that period, and also help those who've lost somebody get through that period of grief and uncertainty. So I'd like to thank everybody here for organising today. It was professionals yesterday and then community members today. And there is still soup and hot dogs and things in the cafe for sale, and there's cakes for sale, and you can continue selling your wares at your tables, but we need to relieve Meg and Alice to go home and get some well-deserved sleep, because sleep is key for mental health.
We still have just over 5 minutes left. To be honest, I am completely overwhelmed with all of the support we got. We've still got online donations flooding in. So as of right now, within the last 26 hours, we have raised £734.33 in aid of the Teenage Suicide Society. It's been a long 26 hours. So me and Alice have been the event coordinators. We have lived and breathed the talkathon since May. But we wouldn't be anywhere without everyone here today supporting us, all of the professionals that came in and spoke about how wonderful Sunlight is for, promoting mental health, well-being and that crisis intervention support. And of course, it wasn't just me and Alice that signed up to do this talkathon. So Juliana signed up for 13 hours of our talkathon. And Jason, although you only did 2 hours, you actually raised more money than all 3 of us. So well done. That's all I got. I'm done.
5 minutes.
I just got to keep talking for 5 minutes. Can someone else please come up and talk before I just start crying? Because honestly, when I first started talking about the talkathon, I thought it was going to be me and Alice sat in a room and there would be no one else there to show our support. And it's been overwhelming, hasn't it? We've had, some of my family members stayed till 2 o'clock in the morning with us. Morel came in at 8 o'clock in the morning making bacon sandwiches for us. That was heaven. Juliana came in and brought in all these wonderful cakes to sell for Baton of Hope. So grab yourself a slice of cake as well, because Juliana's husband is an amazing baker. Jason didn't make anything, but that's okay.
Just because he beat you with the fundraising.
Yeah, he didn't need to show off anymore. And I just want to apologise to my Safe Haven team, because since May, I've sort of constantly gone, Jason, can you read my proposal? Jason, can you do this? Jason, how do you link all these Just Giving pages together? Jason, do you think you can make posters for it? Could you make us the logo? So poor Jason has had to do his action work on top of me and his ear nagging him at the same time. So I think Jason deserves his own round of applause, to be honest.
We've got there, you know, after all that planning, it's happened. It's been through, it's been 26 hours, it's put it in that. We've got raised the money for that, and it's through everybody pulling together and Meg leading the focus that makes things like this happen and makes things like the Safe Haven happen, and it be that beacon of light and safe place for the people of Medway to come. And I mean, I started here a couple of years ago, but it really did feel like coming home and a place that I needed to be. And it's from lots of things that have happened in my life, it's now really good to be somewhere where I feel appreciated and that I can use my skills and contribute to the community as a whole. So I'm pleased to just be able to be part of it, really. So
Yeah, we only have 2 minutes left. So my next session is addressed to board members in the room. Next time, I give you a really crazy proposal or something that seems really out there. Please don't approve it, because then I have to go through with it and then I actually do.
She hasn't had enough sleep, she doesn't mean that.
Yeah.
No, I just think, how long we have?
A minute. 2
30
minutes.
seconds.
Do you know something, at 2 o'clock in the morning, when it was just being made between 2 and 8 o'clock, I didn't get the sack, she didn't leave the Samaritans. That's been a winner chicken dinner.
Oh, brilliant stuff. Just 30 seconds as councillors for Gillingham North, myself, Leah, David is not here. We just want to say you guys are doing a fantastic job raising awareness to what's probably been an underrepresented subject for too many years. The power of community is definitely in this house.
10, 9,